Welcome back to Globewise Entertainment, where cinema's hidden stories come to life and controversy is always part of the plot. In Part 1, we uncovered some of the most daring and banned films of the 1970s, but we're just getting started. The 70s were a time of fearless filmmaking, when directors pushed every boundary, sexual, political, and psychological. In Part 2, we're diving even deeper into the vault to bring you 7 more films that shocked, disturbed, and were silenced by censorship boards around the world. These aren't your typical movie night picks. These are the films that made headlines, sparked protests, and in some places, disappeared completely. Haven't subscribed to Globewise Entertainment yet? Hit that subscribe button now so you never miss a journey through the boldest corners of film history. And tell us in the comments, which banned movie do you think went too far? Or maybe didn't go far enough? We want to hear your take. 1. The Hills Have Eyes, 1977, banned for its brutal vision of survival. In the scorching deserts of the American Southwest, a seemingly ordinary family road trip turns into a savage nightmare in Wes Craven's explosive horror film, The Hills Have Eyes. When the Carter family's camper breaks down near an abandoned nuclear testing site, they find themselves hunted by a feral clan of cannibalistic mutants, twisted remnants of Cold War fallout. The film shocked audiences with its graphic violence, disturbing imagery, and nihilistic tone. Craven, already notorious for pushing the boundaries of horror with The Last House on the Left, delivered another brutal punch to the American psyche. Scenes of rape, child endangerment, and savage killings led to outright bans or heavy censorship in several countries, including the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. But beneath the blood and screams, The Hills Have Eyes was more than exploitation. It was a dark metaphor for America's own savagery, reflecting fears about the nuclear age, government secrecy, and how civilization quickly collapses under pressure. The lines between the civilized and the monstrous blur, leaving viewers unsettled long after the credits roll. Its raw realism and relentless pace made it a cult classic, but also a lightning rod for censors, who feared its psychological impact and moral ambiguity. For years, it remained banned or heavily cut in multiple countries. Today, The Hills Have Eyes stands as a landmark in horror history, a savage tale of survival that dared to ask, what would you become when there's no one left to save you? 2. Deliverance, 1972. The film that shocked a nation into silence. When Deliverance hit theaters in 1972, it wasn't just a movie. It was a cultural explosion that stunned audiences and rattled censors around the globe. Directed by John Berman and based on the novel by James Dickey, Deliverance tells the harrowing tale of 4 suburban men who embark on a canoe trip in the wilds of Georgia, only to descend into a nightmare of violence, primal survival, and moral reckoning. What begins as an adventurous getaway spirals into a brutal confrontation with backwoods locals, and a terrifying loss of innocence. What made Deliverance so controversial wasn't just its realistic portrayal of violence and nature. It was that scene. A graphic, unflinching male rape sequence, something virtually unheard of in mainstream cinema at the time, sent shockwaves through audiences. The phrase "squeal like a pig" became infamous, symbolizing the raw terror and vulnerability the film so vividly depicted. Censors in several countries balked. The film was banned in parts of South Africa, heavily cut in the UK, and temporarily pulled from theaters in some American cities due to public outcry. Critics were deeply divided. Some praised its brutal honesty and artistry, while others condemned it as exploitative. But controversy didn't sink Deliverance. It solidified its legacy. It received 3 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, and is now widely regarded as a cinematic landmark for pushing the boundaries of what film could portray. To this day, Deliverance remains a symbol of the 1970s, bold new wave of filmmaking, fearless, raw, and unafraid to confront the darkest corners of human nature. 3. The Story of O, 1975. A tale too erotic for the 1970s. Based on the controversial 1954 novel by Pauline Riage, The Story of O, French, Histoire d'O, was a bold cinematic adaptation that tested the boundaries of what 1970s cinema could legally and morally show. Directed by Just Jekin, who had already pushed erotic boundaries with Emmanuel. This film wasn't just provocative, it was explosive. The plot follows a beautiful fashion photographer named O, who willingly becomes a submissive sex slave to her lover, Renee, and later to a series of men in a mysterious chateau. There, O is subjected to rituals of domination, bondage, and emotional transformation. Her journey challenges ideas of love, freedom, and female agency, all within a deeply controversial BDSM context that shocked even European audiences. The film's explicit nature, nudity, sadomasochism, and the theme of erotic submission caused an uproar across the world. It was banned outright in the United Kingdom upon release and remained so for over a decade. In Canada, it faced heavy censorship, while Australia refused to classify it at all, essentially banning it. Even in liberal France, the home of the film, it was met with outrage and had to undergo revisions before release. Critics and feminists were divided. Some viewed it as dangerously misogynistic, portraying a woman's objectification as romantic or artistic. Others interpreted it as a daring exploration of female desire and control, even within submission. To this day, the story of O remains one of the most talked about erotic films in cinema history. Its legacy lies not just in its sexual content, but in the way it forced societies to confront uncomfortable questions about power, pleasure, and censorship. 4. Female Trouble, 1974. The outrageous cult classic Too Wild for the Censors. In 1974, director John Waters unleashed a film so outrageous, so gleefully grotesque, that it sent moral watchdogs into full panic mode. Female Trouble wasn't just a movie. It was a cinematic riot against every conventional idea of beauty, crime, and good taste. At its center was the incomparable Divine, playing the role of Dawn Davenport, a teenage delinquent whose petty crimes spiral into full-blown infamy. From hurling Christmas trees at her parents to becoming the poster girl for criminal glamour, Dawn's descent is shocking, absurd, and to some deeply offensive. Waters' signature style, trash aesthetics, exaggerated performances, and pitch-black satire challenged every moral norm of the time. The film featured scenes of forced beauty treatments, violent tantrums, and anti-establishment declarations that mocked traditional American values. Censors didn't know what to do with Female Trouble. It was banned or heavily restricted in multiple regions due to its vulgar language, sexual content, and unabashedly transgressive themes. Some theaters refused to screen it entirely, calling it filth masquerading as cinema. But to its growing cult following, that was the point. Today, Female Trouble is hailed as a queer counterculture classic that pushed boundaries when few dared. It wasn't just a rebellion. It was a proud, defiant scream against repression and the sanitized standards of Hollywood storytelling. 5. J2 Illinois, L. 1974. The film that dared to break every rule. In 1974, Belgian director Chantal Akerman released a film so quietly provocative, it still sparks debate today. J2, Illinois, L. Sparse in dialogue but heavy with emotional weight, this avant-garde film follows a young woman, played by Akerman herself, as she drifts through isolation, sexuality, and human connection. But what truly pushed censors into panic mode was a scene that featured one of the earliest and most explicit lesbian sex acts shown in European cinema. A 10-minute sequence that was unflinching in its honesty and physical intimacy. At the time, that was unheard of. Akerman didn't just push artistic boundaries, she shattered them. Governments and rating boards in several countries quickly moved to either ban or heavily censor the film, claiming it was obscene and dangerously subversive. In places like France, Belgium, and even parts of Canada, the film was either pulled from screens or relegated to underground circuits where only a few brave theaters dared to show it. But behind the controversy was a deeper message. The film's fragmented storytelling, minimalism, and unapologetic exploration of female desire made it a feminist landmark, especially in an era when cinema rarely told such stories from a woman's perspective. Decades later, critics and film scholars now hail J2 Illinois, L as a pioneering work, one that gave voice to queer identity, artistic freedom, and the raw vulnerability of solitude. 6. The Beast La Bête. 1975. Too shocking for the screen. In the shadowy corridors of European cinema, one film dared to cross boundaries others wouldn't even approach. The Beast, or La Bête as it was known in France, wasn't just controversial. It was scandalous, disturbing, and to some, utterly unwatchable. Directed by Walerian Borowczyk, this 1975 French erotic horror film told the story of a young woman, Lucy, who is sent to a crumbling estate to marry a mysterious nobleman. But as the wedding plans unfold, the film spirals into surreal and deeply unsettling territory. Lucy begins to experience vivid dreams or nightmares of a mythical beast, a creature whose lustful appetite becomes the center of grotesque and graphic sequences. What pushed the beast into the realm of infamy wasn't just its shocking sexual content, but the way it blurred the line between fantasy, bestiality, and horror. A now infamous scene involving the beast and the dreaming woman ignited outrage across countries. Censors in the UK, the US, and Australia quickly slapped bans or demanded severe edits. Critics didn't know whether to label it art house or outright pornography. Yet, underneath its extreme imagery, Borowczyk seemed to challenge society's repression and hypocrisy regarding sexuality. Some viewed it as a surreal allegory, others as pure provocation. Either way, The Beast became a film whispered about in film circles, hidden behind the adult section curtain, and banned in multiple countries for decades. Even today, La Bête remains one of the most disturbing yet talked about films of 1970s European cinema, a cinematic beast that refused to be tamed. 7. Andy Warhol's Frankenstein, 1973, gore, sex, and the taboo fusion that shocked the world. In the early 1970s, the art world's enfant terrible, Andy Warhol, was no stranger to controversy. But when he lent his name to a hyperviolent, sexually charged horror film like Frankenstein, few were prepared for what was coming. Directed by Paul Morrissey, a frequent Warhol collaborator, Andy Warhol's Frankenstein was unlike any Frankenstein story before it. This wasn't a gothic tale of science gone wrong. It was a hallucinatory, grotesque, and almost absurd blend of necrophilia, dismemberment, and erotic horror. The film's tagline said it best. To know death, Otto must F life in the gallbladder. Filmed in 3D, the gore was pushed directly into the audience's face. Literal guts spilled out of the screen. The film's bizarre sexual content, especially involving the Frankenstein monster and corpse brides, made even seasoned horror fans squirm. It was NC-17 cinema before NC-17 even existed. Unsurprisingly, the film was banned or heavily censored in several countries, including Italy, Australia, and parts of the UK, where its graphic sexual violence clashed with obscenity laws. Even in the US, it only saw limited release with significant cuts. Critics were split. Some saw it as camp genius, others dismissed it as perverted trash. But Warhol had done what he always did: blurred the line between art and exploitation. Today, Andy Warhol's Frankenstein is considered a cult classic, remembered for pushing the limits of horror cinema and becoming a grotesque symbol of the anything-goes 1970s underground film movement. And there you have it, 7 more jaw-dropping, boundary-breaking films from the 1970s that dared to challenge the system and paid the price in bans, cuts, and controversy. These weren't just movies, they were cultural firestorms that tested how far art could really go. Which one shocked you the most? Or did one of these become a cult favorite in your eyes? Drop your thoughts in the comment box. We're always excited to hear your take. If you haven't already, subscribe to Globewise Entertainment now and join us as we continue to explore the wild, weird, and forgotten corners of film history. Like the video if you enjoyed it, share it with your fellow movie lovers, and stay tuned for more stories Hollywood didn't want you to know. Until next time, this is Globewise Entertainment, where cinema's secrets are always center stage.